Let's do this. Well, appreciate everybody taking the time and hopping on, and hope everyone's been enjoying the conference. I know we're coming up to the end of the day here. I was able to sit in a couple of sessions earlier today, and it's just amazing to see what Tenbound has done with this community and with all the great speakers that they've had on. So let's hop into why everyone's here today. We hire a lot of SDRs. We're kind of in the SDR people business. So I know the title presentation, last year we hired close to 200. However, that wasn't an outlier. Actually, since 2017, we've consistently hired over 150 SDRs per year. So we're always bringing on a lot of SDRs. Why? Well, we're an SDR outsourcing firm. So the SDRs we bring on, we assign to a client, which is a B2B technology company, and they have to generate qualified sales opportunities through the phone, through email, through social. Since we are a professional services firm, we have to ramp up our SDRs fairly quickly. We can't afford to have an SDR sitting on the sidelines for 2 months to ramp. We have to get them going. So we have to have a process to do that and to do it quickly. Anyone who's ever been a part of building an SDR organization knows that there are lots of challenges around hiring. There are lots of challenges around the onboarding and the training, but an often overlooked challenge is, how do I keep the SDR motivated and continuing to develop and learn? Depending on where your SDR team is based and what that market looks like for a sales development rep, that presents a whole other set of challenges. And we're not immune to those challenges. We have offices across the country and a few different markets. What's a little bit unique about us is that as we assign these SDRs to these clients, these B2B tech companies, they have the option to actually hire that SDR. So that presents a whole other kind of piece of the equation, that we're always seeing churn, and we're always seeing positive exits happening, and it's a revolving door. So we're constantly hiring, and we're constantly bringing in new blood. So we have to have a process in place that is repeatable, that's scalable, that anybody can kind of just pick up and figure out. So that leads me to kind of what I want to talk about today. And I could run a separate session on each one of these topics, but I'm going to touch a little bit on how we do it and how you can emulate this within your organizations as you look to grow your teams. And I'm not saying if you're not growing a team to 100 or 200 SDRs, that this isn't going to make sense to you, right? This is just small things that people can do. So we're going to talk about hiring, onboarding, and development. So with hiring, where do all these SDRs come from? Where do we look? So there's two specific places. We do all the normal recruiting practices. We have an employee referral program. We do things that pretty much every company does. But there are two specific things that we do that I think a lot of companies and a lot of you listening in can emulate within your organizations. One is around our on-campus presence and how we recruit college graduates to become SDRs, and also what we call our alumni network that I'll get into. So we are very firm believers that one of the best sources of talent for the SDR role is going to be a recent college grad. And a lot of people think we're crazy for doing that. So, why would you bring somebody on with little to no experience at all? And the way we see it is that the upside is tremendous. It's going to require you to have to make sure you interview the right way, you look for the right talent, and it's going to require you to make sure you're training, which involves quite a bit of hand-holding. But if you're willing to make that investment, the upside is huge. And considering there isn't a lot of experience when you talk about compensation and market value, you're seeing a huge ROI. So, a sizable chunk, not all, but a sizable chunk of our candidate pool, our recruiting pool, is going to be with on campus. So much so that we actually have 2 recruiters on staff that all they do is campus recruiting. And the reason for that is that companies that hire SDRs for recent college grads, what I find a lot of times that one of the biggest mistakes they make is that they treat their campus recruiting efforts like a fall and spring sport only. It's like, oh, that's when school's in session, so that's when I should be actively participating and actively trying to seek out these students. It needs to be a year-round endeavor, and most college graduates, and there's some statistics that show this, most college graduates make their decision on where they want to work their fall semester of their senior year. So by the time you get to that spring career fair, you're already behind. So speaking of career fairs, I think when most people talk about campus recruiting, they talk about career fair participation. And we do the same. So we have offices in the DC area, Boston, Denver, San Jose, and Austin. So we try to actively participate as much as possible in the career fairs for those universities, as I'm sure a lot of you do if this is your strategy. Uh, Anybody who's ever been to a career fair, either as an employer or as a student, knows that oftentimes it's in a very large room, like a gym. There are hundreds of companies there, and they don't have anything to do with each other, right? You could have a booth next to an aerospace defense contractor looking for engineers, and right across from you, you have Frito-Lay, and you've got a life insurance company over there, and you got Hilton Hotels over there. It's just a big hodgepodge of all these different companies. And the students that are coming in, they're between classes, so they don't have a whole lot of time, and a lot of them don't know what they want to do yet. So while we have seen success at the career fair, we take it a step further, and a lot of companies have missed out on this. A great part of this is going to be, how can I target students who want to be in sales? And that's a challenge because a lot of students, no one goes into high school or college being like, oh, I want to be in sales. But there's no sales major, sales programs. Actually, there is. So what's been really prominent in the past several years is this rise of collegiate selling programs, competitive selling programs, and actually sales programs. So you can actually major in sales, you can have a concentration in sales, you can take sales courses at several universities across the country. And it's been mind-blowing to see. And the level of students they churn out are incredible, right? There's a sales professor who will head up the program. And we have relationships with a few. A good friend of mine, Dr. Howard Dover, he runs the sales program at UT Dallas. Churns out incredible students. Brian Collins, who runs the sales program at Virginia Tech, we've hired a few of his students, and they're just absolute ballers. They will run these competitive selling programs. So there are these national tournaments, and there's a few here that you see logos for, where they bring all these students in, and they actually get to. They actually compete. They do these mock role plays, like in-person role plays. And as a sponsoring company, you can participate as a judge and actually sit in and score these. And they'll have a special career fair there for companies that sponsor and participate. So you can actually get in touch with these students. But doing these types of programs helps tremendously. So as if you were to explore hiring recent college grads, I highly suggest kind of the takeaway here is, look up these programs for sure. So there's the ICSC, the NCSC, Pi Sigma Epsilon it's an academic fraternity, specifically with a sales and marketing concentration. And they also host their own sales competition in a similar fashion. But reach out to the local universities that are there and see if they have a sales program, and consider. I mean, these programs do need funding, and oftentimes they look to local businesses for help to be able to speak to the students and to help kind of fund these competitions that they're participating in for their school. So a big effort for us, outside of just the typical career fair participation, really looking at these programs can be tremendous help. I've had the pleasure of coaching some of these competitions and judging these competitions, and it's just amazing to see those students, especially if you're not looking to hire a whole bunch of SDRs, right? This is great for just kind of trickling in. So I'm seeing some questions coming in. Morgan, hello, long time. If the company does not have a campus recruiting team yet, what are some ways my organization can recruit recent college grads? That's a great question. Obviously, the first place to start is going to be looking within your organization with SDRs you already have, and seeing if you have any connections there, right? Oftentimes if you do hire recent college grads, they were part of some type of fraternity, sorority, club. See if they know anybody to kind of give you that in a little bit to start your recruiting efforts that way, and see if it makes sense to then get a booth at one of their career fairs. Cool. So we also have something called the Alumni Network, and I used to think this was kind of just unique to us because of our model of we always have our SDRs getting hired by their clients and moving on and having these positive exits. Anybody that exits the company that way will be a part of our alumni network, similar to a university, how they have their alumni network, except we're not calling our alumni and asking them for donations or anything. We use it as a way to engage with people that used to work at memoryBlue to extend a helping hand, especially in recent months with everything happening, trying to help out where we can. Engaging with them to see kind of what they're up to. We have a podcast where we actually bring them on and actually interview them and learn about kind of what's made them successful, and may hear their story. So we have this network, and they're basically these little ambassadors for memoryBlue in terms of, at least from a hiring perspective, right? We incentivize them to do it. So it's not just, hey, a current employee, can you refer people in? But hey, people that used to work as an SDR for my company, right, or has moved up within the organization, right? Do you know anybody that could come work for us? So I think companies can look internally, and you might be surprised. You might have your own little alumni network, right? Because not every exit from a company is going to be a negative exit, right? There are positive exits that can happen. There are people that can move up from the SDR role within your organization and then move out. So continue engaging with them, mainly to be a helping hand, right? To kind of be like, hey, once you're in the family, you're always in the family type deal. But also using it as a recruiting arm has been beneficial for us. And I think a lot of companies can tap into that and try to foster their own alumni network to see where people are as they move on. And as we all know, especially within a sales organization, there is quite a bit of churn as compared to other parts of an organization. So building upon that alumni network can be huge. And we do this thing called the Alumni of the Year, where alumni feel like they've had a strong year, can apply, and they can win a prize based on. We have judges that come in and kind of determine who had the best year at whatever company that they're at. So the on-campus recruiting and the alumni network are two things that we do a little bit differently to help kind of just keep the machine running, right? This is all about keeping this machine constantly moving. Going back to the on-campus, so Jordan, that's actually a really good handshake. I forgot to, that's actually a really good point. That's a great app that colleges use. And yeah, colleges post job boards and things like that. So definitely, look to that as well. Morgan, to your question, look to see how you can get posted on a job board at university. Students use that quite often. So just a quick look at our interview process at a high level. I won't spend too much time. Again, I could probably run a whole separate session on just this. But we really do, and what we suggest is really treating your interview process like a sales process. Multiple steps, there's multiple eyes on it. And our talent recruiters all used to be SDRs. They had that sales DNA. So they know, as they're taking a candidate through the process, if a candidate's like, oh, I'm totally sold on coming to work at memoryBlue, my number one choice, they know that, the deal's not signed till the deal's signed. So leading them through that process. I won't spend too much time on this, but I know there's definitely conflicting views on personality assessments. We use a DISC assessment that we benchmark against a successful inside sales professional and what that would look like. And so that we require, we do a role play as well, which I highly suggest as you onboard SDRs to do some type of activity like a role play. I mean, we don't look for perfection in these things. We don't look to be sold on these things. I mean, if that happens, that's great. But we look to see how much did this person prepare? How much research did they do? How much do they care? How much do they want this role? I've heard of companies doing something like providing candidates having to provide a writing sample. So it can be like an essay, or it can be an actual, hey, you have 20 or 25 minutes to craft an email. Again, not to look for the most amazing sales email, but to see how they write and how professional they are in their grammar. So doing some type of activity there. The main thing I'll say about our interview process is, and I can attest to this, I've been in situations where I had to hire like 5 SDRs last week, but we still run this process through everybody, right? There's no fast tracking. You want to be as thorough as possible as you go through your process. So as you onboard SDRs, only because it's such a vital role, and you don't want to be in a position where you have to keep swapping people out. You want to make sure you take the time, getting multiple viewpoints. We have at least 3 different people looking at this candidate and scoring this candidate each step of the way. So again, high level, just having several steps before we get to that point. So we talked about hiring, how we do it, our campus presence, we talked about our alumni network, we talked about just the interview process in general. So now they've accepted an offer, they're starting. What happens next? So we have something called the memoryBlue Academy. And what happens here, it's a 6-week program all of our SDRs go through. And I'm sure all of you have your own training programs. There's only a couple of things that I want to say in terms of suggestions that based on our experience that you can apply to your training program for your SDRs. One is you have to spend a lot more time on the application of techniques instead of just showing it to them. I know I've seen organizations where they put together a playbook and they just hand it to you, or they email it over and say, all right, here's your playbook, go for it. We do something similar in that we do have a playbook, but we actually do a 2-day boot camp where we review the whole thing. So we actually start from the fundamentals of, all right, this is an introduction, your opening statement, how to conduct a proper discovery, handle objections, how do you differentiate, how do you close for next steps. We talk about how to talk to gatekeepers, leave voicemails, send emails, list building. We cram that all in this fire hose it up for 2 days. And then the rest of the 6 weeks is actually spent on application. So each week is a different module of the bootcamp. So for example, week 1 will be introduction opening statement. So every member of that new hire cohort will have to bring an actual live recording of a call where they deliver their intro and opening statement, no matter what the outcome of it was, just to hear them actually deliver it. And then an academy facilitator will break it down. Everybody in the cohort will hear it. So what I encourage you all to do as you onboard your SDRs is, come up with how you want them to deliver parts of the call, right? Specifically, with the opening statement, questions that they need to be asking, like what's the definition of a qualified lead? What objections are they going to be running into? How are they going to differentiate against the competitors? And what's the overall outcome of that call supposed to be, right? In most cases, it's setting up a follow-up meeting or a demo. And then, put it all into a playbook that they can refer back to. That's really, really important that you have it all in one central place. We actually print it out and hand it to them, but you can also, have it in like a PDF that you can send over. And then make sure that they're actually applying the techniques, that they're actually using those things through and doing it through some type of call recording software. We like to kind of make somewhat of an analogy that our new people, our newest hires, they're like in the ICU, right? We have to constantly kind of check up on them, making sure that they're developing, that they're getting better. And we do that through our daily huddles. So each day is a specific huddle only for people that are within their first 6 weeks, where we go over the metrics, we go over successes, we go over their challenges. And while this is a great tool, of course, for just ramping up, it's a great way to kind of sense those red flags and try to find some of those red flags earlier on. Especially at the SDR level, you don't want to be 3 or 4 months in and all of a sudden uncover a red flag that you could have been able to identify earlier on. So we use these things as metrics to see how engaged they are and how much they really want to be there. So again, right, it's the application of the techniques and making sure that you have it all written in one place. And whether you have to hire the third party to do that for you, or you're able to do it internally, or you have a sales enablement team that can do that. Having a repeatable kind of a training program for them is key, and spending more time. And I'm not saying you have to do 6 weeks, but spending more time on the application of those techniques. So it's just something to keep in mind there from an onboarding standpoint. That's kind of how we do it. So the last thing I want to talk about, I know we're coming almost up on the end of time, is the ongoing development. How, once they're past their 6 weeks, how do we make sure they're continually developing? And there's really only 2 words to this, and that's call coaching. And I could just end the presentation here because I think that's the mic drop. But like, call coaching is by far the most important part of the SDR job. If you're talking about getting better, you have to get good at it. And I've been saying this for months and on some of the other talks and podcasts that I've been on. If you don't have a call coaching solution in place, whether you have an SDR team of 2 people or 20 people, you need to have some type of call coaching solution in place. There's no shortage of tools out there, right? There's Chorus, there's Gone, there's Exec Vision. There are a bunch of tools out there that you can use for this. And don't just buy it and just kind of say, all right, SDRs, go use it. You need to create this culture of call coaching, that it happens often. And it's like internally at the rep level, making sure that they are breaking down 2 calls a week. But if someone's new, they got to be doing more than that, and making sure that they're not just reviewing their bad calls, but also their good calls. I think a lot of SDRs spend time trying to review calls that didn't go well, versus, I think the best athletes in the world, they still break down film from their best games, right? Because they want to see what they did well, right, and how they did it. So making sure that happens, and then getting multiple people involved at different levels of management. Earlier, when I was talking about how do we keep SDRs engaged and felt like they're valued, this is a really great way to do it, right? If I'm an SDR and I see that VP of sales or CRO took time out of their day to break down one of my calls, one, it'd be a little terrifying. I'd be like, oh wow, okay, they can actually listen to it, and I'm gonna probably step up my game a little bit more. But it's gonna make me feel valued. It's gonna make me feel like, all right, they actually care. I mean, we all know how difficult the SDR job is, and that it can be a thankless job. So a small way to kind of keep that engagement going is encouraging all levels of management to be involved. So I'll leave it with this image. I think kind of encapsulates all this. So this is a screenshot from our call coaching solution. We use Exec Vision, and this is Matt, and this is a breakdown of his call. So he uploads the call and spits out kind of a breakdown. The top line is Matt talking. The bottom line is the prospect. You can see kind of the percentage and how often each we're talking. Towards the bottom, you'll see 6 different faces. So these are all comments. These little like speech text bubbles. You click on it, expands and reveals the rest of the comments. There's highlights. So you see Matt has broken down his own call, and then you see 2 of his peers also broke down this call. But you also see that I got in on the action and broke down this call, and I don't even manage Matt or anything like that. You see the head of sales, so someone 2 levels above Matt broke down this call, and then right in the middle there, you'll see Mark, who's one of our co-founders, actually took time to break down this call. So you're seeing multiple levels involved in breaking down this call, and the kicker is that Matt's not a new SDR, right? He's a tenured employee. He's very good at what he does, and he's been very successful. So the fact that we're taking time to break down those calls, right, it's key. And that if someone who's been here for as long as Matt has is getting this type of attention, just think of how much you want to give to someone who's a little bit newer. So call coaching is really the key, and a lot of you might already have a solution in place, but really I encourage you, these solutions can do some really, really awesome things. And we've been using Exec Vision for some time now, and we're still discovering new ways to use it. And it's really exciting to see it actually helping and developing our SDRs. So that's all I had for you today. I really just wanted to scratch the surface. I try to condense as much information as possible. Of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. I actually do respond to messages on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out. You can also email me, and of course, if you want to learn anything about kind of the services we offer, and as well as the memoryBlue Academy, which you yourself can go through, you can put your SDRs through. Of course, you can check out our website and reach out to me. So questions. I saw one question come in. So you mentioned red flags in the first few weeks. What are you seeing, looking out for? That's a great question. So you want to set some type of benchmark in terms of activity that you want to see from your newest employees. For us, that's always going to be higher, right? You always want to set the bar higher. So if your organization, for your SDR team, your tenured SDR team is going to be 50 dials, then you want to set the bar higher for your newest people, like 75, right? And you want to make that known that, hey, we want to see this type of output from you because you're newer. So looking at just the straight metrics, like how much is this person actually, hitting those numbers, or are they coming up with excuses or what have you, right? You can tell pretty quickly which ones are actually there working and the other ones that kind of that they have that call reluctance. You want to look out for things. So like for us, we do the application. So each week they have to bring a call. So sometimes you have the person that they don't put a call in at all, or they put a call, but it's like, you could have done a better job. Or you could have put in a better call, or you're not rushing to look. This makes it look like you rushed to the last second to do it. Another great use for the call coaching software is you can see how often someone's coaching a call, and you can see a dashboard and reports of how often your team is coaching, who's coaching the most calls, who's coaching the least amount of calls. So looking for things like that, just to see it's just engaged and how much they want to be there. And then each organization will have their own metrics that they look out for. But I know we've got a couple minutes left here. I've had other questions coming in, and I'll just give it another couple seconds. Maybe else has any other questions. But yeah, I mean, we hire a lot of SDRs, and we make sure that we put that emphasis on the hiring, the onboarding, and the training. And hopefully you all were able to take something away. I appreciate your time. Here we go. How do you tell them to stay motivated? There's a few ways. It's going to depend on your management style. But I think you have to find out what the root cause is, right? Why aren't they motivated? and start there. Everyone's going to have their own reason, and you want to identify that first as a manager, and then based on what they say, take the action items from there. Um, Cool. Well, again, thank you all for taking the time, being generous with your time. I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. So looking forward if feel free to connect with me. Yeah, again, to thank you to David Delaney and the rest of the Tenbound team for giving me the opportunity to speak here. So everyone stay safe, stay sane, and we'll see you in person next year for the conference. Take care.